Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'll call the Board of Commissioners September 24th meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for being here, everyone, today. If you haven't, please sign in on the sheet there on the table, and we will continue with our agenda review.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda this morning.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We'll continue with the County Ditch 92 impoundment petition and engineer appointment. Brian?
Yep. Morning.
Morning, Brian.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ryan with Duluth County Drainage Management. Today we're here to discuss the CD 92 possible impoundment petition we received. On September 6th of 2019, we received a petition for possible impoundment, reroute, and partial abandonment for Ditch 92, which is located in Meadow Township and 1,600 acres approximately in this watershed. Today we are asking the Drainage Authority to approve the findings in order, which does include the appointment of Charles Brandel from ISG for the review of this impoundment.
Okay. Any questions for Brian?
Pretty straightforward, just a point of view
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
engineer.
We're just going to review the plans at this
I would move approval for Chuck Brandel to be the engineer.
Second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
Thanks, Brian. You too.
That was good.
Okay, we will continue on with planning and zoning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay, go ahead.
PC 22-19 is a request from Eric Yeager on property owned by Michael and Susan Yeager for review and approval of a conditional use permit to expand an existing feedlot by constructing and operating one new total confinement swine finishing barn capable of housing 2,400 finishing pigs or 960 Blue Earth County defined animal units, which was 720 state animal units. The site will utilize a below barn liquid manure storage area. When finished, the proposed expansion will have a total of 1,280 Blue Earth County defined animal units. The property is zoned agricultural and is located in the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 8, Mapleton Township. Mr. Rolfing presented the staff report. The applicants were present and had no additional comments. There was no public comment and little discussion by the Planning Commission. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff. The board action is the resolution.
Okay, at this time I'll open up the public comment portion of the meeting. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to PC 22-19, please come to the podium, state your name and address. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to PC 22-19? Come to the podium and state your name and address. Anyone in the audience that would like to speak to PC 22-19? If there's no one, I'll close the public portion of the meeting, bring it back to the board for action.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 15-19 is a request from Robert W. Lorenz for review and approval of a map amendment. The proposed map amendment would rezone the eastern portion of one parcel and 3 additional parcels from rural town site to light industrial to accommodate the expansion of an existing business. The proposal is within the Urban Fringe Overlay District of the City of Mankato and located in parts of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter and the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 14, South Bend Township. Mr. Stubbs presented the staff report. The applicants were present. They indicated one new building is planned for now. The change of access will be to Macaulay Street, and they will no longer use Sturgis Street. They further indicated that the expansion would allow them to do more work on their equipment in the shop without making multiple trips to and from the facility. 5 neighboring residents addressed the Planning Commission and expressed the following concerns. 1. Additional conflict between the business expansion and the residential neighborhood, including noise, vibration, impact on neighboring homes, traffic concerns, and pedestrian safety. 2. Hours of operation. Currently, all hours of the day and night when factoring in vendor vehicles and snow removal during the winter months. 3. Continued expansion and intensification of a commercial use in an industrial or in a residential neighborhood. 4. Approving the request will send a message that it's okay to violate the regulations. 5. Neighboring residents are deprived of their quality of life. 6. Negative impact on property values. 7. Environmental issues. 8. The 1981 rezoning action was likely spot zoning. 9. The applicants have dumped stuff onto neighboring properties. 10. The proposal is not consistent with the Urban Fringe Overlay District and not consistent with the county land use plan. Discussion of the planning by the planning agency focused on the non-compatibility of the use expansion versus the residential character of the neighborhood. It was suggested that the existing business may have outgrown their location. The commission also cited conflict between the proposed map amendment and the county land use plan. Supportive comments of the map amendment included the ability to address stormwater concerns, and with review of a conditional use permit application, conditions could be imposed and monitored. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted 6 in favor to 1 opposed to deny the map amendment request. No reference was made to the findings proposed by staff, and the board action is the resolution.
Okay, at this time, I'll open the public comment portion of the meeting. If there's anyone that would like to speak to PC 15-19, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to about 3 minutes if you would. So.
Hi, I'm Robert Sigler, 418 Macaulay Street. First of all, I just want to thank all the board members. I think you guys are really great because you've shown that you're listening to all sides, and we really feel like you've listened to us. I think ultimately this, as I've mentioned before, it's a decision about the neighborhood. Is it going to continue to be residential, or is it going to be an industrial zone? Right now, the infrastructure is insufficient to continue to support the level of industry we are experiencing. The road is only designed for a 7-ton load. The expense of repeated repair from the heavy and frequent traffic will need to be borne by the residents, or preferably on the next major work, the road will need to be upgraded to accommodate the heavy industrial truck traffic and widened to the 30-foot standard for such traffic. The safety of the children would need to be considered, and sidewalks and street lightings would need to be put in place possibly. This would be an unwelcome intrusion upon our property environment. The cost would be borne by the residents and maybe some of the public entities. I don't know how that's financed with the township or county or whatever. In addition, if the fleet of heavy trucks and trailers is expanded, the entrance to Highway 169 from Land of Memories Drive might need some modification or traffic control. It's already a difficult passage to cross, especially when visibility is blocked on the southern end by high grass or snow. So, you know, other comments that I took note of is like, what is the long-term vision of the company? And will honoring requirements and commitments get in the way of the progress they need to make to become more successful? It is not good for business to push through one's will over the aspirations of a whole neighborhood. So I just kind of threw some potpourri of things that I might not have mentioned or things that might not have been focused on. And thank you.
Oh, thank you, Robert. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else that would like to speak to PC 15-19?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Shirley Rosenau, and I live at 425 Macaulay Street, which I see you have a map pulled up on your computer, will be just kitty corner across the intersection with Holly Street and Macaulay Street with the large piece of property that they want to rezone. I have lived at that house, in that house, since November of 1960. It was purchased as residential property, as at that time, the whole of the north side of La Hillier was residential. The opposite side, the south side, was sort of a mixed-use bag. But my house was in a residential neighborhood. If that changes and if this is allowed to pass, it will be, to me, like living across from a truck stop. Can you imagine? It's not just gravel trucks anymore. They now have huge trailers capable of hauling two, like crane. I don't know the technical term for heavy equipment, but like cranes with Caterpillar tracks on them, two of them at once. It's kind of like a huge flatbed with an additional little trailer behind it. It's not conducive to residential living. It was mentioned there are no sidewalks, so there are kids out there that have to ride their bikes, their skateboards on the roads. This is just an accident waiting to happen. And I would just really like to point out in conclusion, the reference by the Blue Earth County staff to spot zoning. This is a perfect example of what happened back in 1981. And the definition of spot zoning would be defined as the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding area, for the benefit of the owner of such property and to the detriment of other owners. And that's exactly what would be happening out there. Looking forward to a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to PC 15-19?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Anna Hagan. I own the two properties north of Lawrence's Construction. I am proof that this company has outgrown its area. I have had diesel dumped in my backyard, oil sludge from them washing their vehicles down the front of both of my properties into the drainage. I asked for a fence, I get concrete pylons. I have surveillance cameras pointed at every direction of my property. I have no privacy at all. I have no quiet time. The vehicles are running all the time. I can't open any of my windows. It's just outgrown our area. It's not a good fit anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to PC 15-19?
Good morning. Once again, like Bob said, we thank you so much for your consideration and coming out and looking at the lay of the land so you could get perspectives of both sides on this. I'm not going to go over a lot of stuff because we've already talked to you about this, so I don't want to, to do that. But I just want our feelings on the water issue that we have on the back and the side, and the air and the noise issues and the safety on the road. We've discussed that with you at great length. I just want to throw something in there that happened yesterday, just kind of a little example of what we were discussing with the children being on the road, which they've been doing for decades, I might add. I was standing at my screen door, y'all know where that is, and I was kind of talking to Bob, and all of a sudden I see the one truck go by that was actually there yesterday. It was a truck with a, like, it looked like a triple trailer on the back, was coming back, and all of a sudden I hear a slamming of brakes, a skidding on the gravel, and my heart went in my throat, and I looked out there, and two little children on bikes came, one on either side of that truck. And he went down the street going towards Sturgis Street, put the brakes on again, and two more children came on bikes. This is an example of what our fear is, that one of these days, it's not gonna be, thank God he didn't hit him. And I know that the young man who was driving it had to have been just horrified. I mean, really, I believe that. But they've got a business to do. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the job they're doing. And when they leave, they want to get home, you know, that kind of thing. But that's something I just wanted to address that actually happened yesterday. We obviously, from all the things that we've said to you, you know the situation. So I'm just going to cut to the chase and just say, I just ask that you please vote no on this for all the reasons that have been discussed. And at that point, I would also like to say that due to the situation we have in our yard, that you've all seen the gravel pad that they added on to this field that was in question. They kind of prematurely put that in before they asked for the rezoning, and that's on the part that they were asking to be rezoned. That's caused us great issues with the water runoff. That's where they piled that mountain of snow that they brought in from Mankato, which slowly melted into our water system. I also would like to say that because this would remain residential basically, they shouldn't be leasing out to other trucking companies. Right now, they added 2 more dump trucks to this trucking company that's been leasing, and they're up and down the road at least as much as the Lorenzes are. And, you know, it's causing more problems. They've got also the big trucks with the trailers and the dump trucks. It's basically a similar situation. And it's a business that they're leasing to. So we ask that stop, because that's adding to all of this problem that's there. I guess that's really the main thing, and I know I don't see any of the Lorenzes here today, but I still would like to say, like I told you, we don't hate Andrew and his family. We just know that Andrew's got so much more to do. They can grow to, the sky's the limit on what they can do with their company, and we welcome that for them. On the other hand, we don't want it to be in our neighborhood anymore because it's outgrown that neighborhood. And we think they should go somewhere where they can just go like crazy, you know, and leave the residential neighborhood the way it is. And I think in the long run, they'd be happier as well. So I thank you all for your time this morning.
Great, thank you. And would you tell us your name again for the record?
Deb Ziegler, 418 Macaulay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good morning.
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 My name's Carrie Curran, and we live on McKinsey Street. And my husband and I just moved in a year ago because of the community and how quiet it is. And we agree with Barb that we have 3 children, and there are a lot of children in this community. And we have seen time and time again kids riding bikes, running up and down the road, and trucks just going down the road and having to stop very quickly because they weren't maybe paying attention, or they didn't see there's some special needs kids on our road, and they don't quite know when to stay off the road and when to stay in the yard. And they've bombed out into the road, and the trucks have had to slam on their brakes because of these children. I know personally probably 20 kids in this small area. And there's a ton more. I pick my kids up off the bus, and there's probably 30 kids that just pile off that bus. And that's not saying the kids that get picked up from their parents. So we just ask that you vote no for bringing in more trucks for this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else that would like to speak to PC 15-19? Anyone else that would like to speak to PC 15-19? If there's no other comments, I'll bring it back to the board. What are the wishes of the board? Yes?
The resolution here is to deny the zoning request, and I would move the resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to, first of all, thank the audience for all their input. I was the one vote that supported this at the planning and zoning meeting, and one of the reasons why I did that was I just thought there was some opportunities out there for the development of that, to deal with some other drainage issues and some of the conditional use permit issues that we could deal with. But Deb and Robert were both nice enough to invite me over there, and Deb and I had a nice conversation. From what I understand, the rest of the board has been out there. This is just a process that works through. I will support the denial of this today, and I appreciate all the time and energy that the citizens have put into this, and appreciate their input, and thank you for coming forward with all of it.
Okay. Very good. Any other comments?
Yeah, I really appreciate the time I spent out there yesterday. Walked the area, looked at the area, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the citizens getting involved. That's what government's all about, getting involved and, just showing your elected officials what's going on. So thank you very much.
I would just like to mirror that and say this is a prime example of grassroots government, and thank you all for your involvement, and thank you for your comments today. So we have a motion and a second to deny. Any other discussion from the board? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. It is denied. Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
coming.
Thank you very much.
There's some people waiting out in the audience outside that can't get in. Is the door locked?
You know, is the door locked? It looks like there's somebody in the
people out
hall.
there.
Is the door locked?
It shouldn't be. No. Josh and Phil are waiting out there.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
We don't mind if they're locked out.
It's okay. It's a back.
thanks, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you, guys.
I think, guys.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks all for
Yes.
coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Sure.
Okay, we'll move on with Human Services as soon
Did you
as,
say Phil was bred outside?
Yeah.
He's coming in.
He must be coming in.
Morning, Phil.
We left a spot right for you.
Morning, Josh.
Morning, Josh.
Hello, hello. Good morning.
Hello.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I have just a few action items to bring to your attention and ask you for some action on. The first one in public health involving Greater Mankato Area United Way. This is a renewal agreement for our base contract with United Way, which obviously funds our First Steps program, which is our home visiting and early intervention. The agreement outlines in some basic templated terms the nature and scope of services, communication, and budgeting. But as you are all aware, we won't have our funding levels until after the United Way campaign is done. So this is a templated contract that we use, and then we'll add the specific funding terms once they're known. The term of this agreement, January 1st, 2020 through December 31st of 2020. Next one in disability services area, Cato Cab. I brought to the board's attention another transportation contract very recently, and this is really to match rates between similar providers. So the purpose of this addendum is to bring Cato Cab as a common carrier according to the DHS manual up to the market rate for these services. The waiver recipients who receive these services gain access to the community services, resources, and their activities that are very central to their day-to-day lives and functioning. So now this new addendum would get us to that similar place with other publicly funded sources. The term of this addendum is from July 1st of this year through the end of the year, and then the new contract will start beginning of next year. And then finally, administration, request for a letter of need. The board's had another one of these similar letters come forward recently. There are the changes that we discussed about SUD reform and chemical health reform, and this is part of that. Some providers, this one is out of the cities, but does have a presence here in our community already in mental health, and they want to expand for a chemical dependency license, and that would include both adolescents and adults for outpatient services. Attached in the packet was their letter with some of the specifics, along with a statement for the chair to sign. Our recommendation in that regard is to indeed support the expansion of these services. They're definitely needed.
Okay.
I'll move approval for the action items.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I found I know how important the issues are with mental health, and my mother actually used to do Rural 25
Oh,
for
sure.
Ramsey County,
Yes.
so it's really important, and there aren't enough of them around, so
Right.
I'm pleased to see that they're coming to Mankato.
Right. Thank you.
Any other comments or concerns? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I have for informational and discussion items today, both child maltreatment data as well as out-of-home placement data. A couple slides in your packet to review. The first of those has to do with our maltreatment statistics. These are always the past year that's completed, so 2018. In the first graphic, you'll see child victims by category, by maltreatment category, and starting at the bottom, you'll see our biggest category by far is neglect issues. And this can be educational neglect, parents' own chemical use, the fact that they're just not supervising their children, all those types of things. Physical abuse, and then followed by sexual abuse, followed by a smaller category of threatened injury that's significant enough to meet statute for maltreatment. And then the middle column shows the first one, just a couple things were measured on maltreatment of children in foster care. This is a hard reality that this does happen. It didn't happen in our county in 2018, so we're very glad about that, but it can happen. And it's something that we keep a very close eye on, as well as the next indicator, which is repeat child maltreatment determination. So that would be the same child coming back through the system again. And so we didn't have any of those either, but that it does happen. I don't feel we can always be at 100%, but in this past year we were, so I'm pleased with that. And then 97.5% of the child victims were seen within our statutory timelines. You'll see those in the box. I will say we're measured if we cannot find the children. Our law enforcement people on our board know this. If we cannot find them, or they don't answer the door, or they leave town, that all counts against us. So we're on the hook to make the contact regardless. And so I don't think we'll ever be at 100% because of that fact. And then the final column, maltreatment interventions, again, starting at the bottom, the family assessment. This is usually, and we've talked some about this in Blue Earth County, usually about the egregiousness of the issue. And so anytime there's sexual abuse or physical abuse, we're talking about the family investigation. The family assessment kind of mirrors the neglect box in the first chart that we showed. So those are the two different strategies we have as far as approaches go. And then just the next slide that I have is a related issue about then when we do have maltreatment determinations and children in need of protection, where do they go and why are they being placed? In the next graphic about out-of-home placement, again 2018 data, left column, the number of children entering placement from the bottom up. Again, the alcohol use and abuse is the biggest category, followed by other types of abuse and neglect. The child's behavior itself is next, the caretaker's mental health, and then just a miscellaneous category as well. Yeah. You'll see the breakout of where we place children in the pie chart, and the biggest group being foster care, which is, definitely what we want to see. As you can imagine, the residential treatment, the 12%, that costs us probably as much as all of the rest put together. So it's extremely expensive care. It is necessary. We'll never eliminate that pie piece. I wish we could, but we can manage it. And then group homes, we've historically not used a lot of group home facilities, but we have had some very chronic issues with certain children that we've had to treat and kind of bend our rule to say that we'd rather use foster care than a group home, but there are times where we need the structure of 24-hour staff and all of that. And then the correctional facilities as well at 17%, which is also a necessary piece of our picture. The graphic at the bottom, the number of children placed in foster care with relatives, 44%. The national average is around 35%, so we're above that. We always try to do an exhaustive search of that. We'd prefer children always be placed with somebody that they know, and hopefully there's a stable home in that regard.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
how are we doing with foster care parents? I would assume it's always a challenge to find enough.
It is. I know in the Communicator this next month, we almost constantly, every time Amy asks us if we have an article, we're like, well, we'd like to do foster care recruitment. It's a really important thing. And the biggest piece of that, Commissioner, is that we're just open to all kinds of people that are willing to provide that care. And to be wide open, I think we're going to still be successful in our recruitment. But the honest truth, and I'm sure you're aware to your question, is that there's not enough. We don't have enough. And so we struggle to find sometimes good placements, good fits, families that are willing to take a sibling group. That's a lot to ask for anyone. And so some of those more unique things, when we have a child that has a children's mental health problem, could they be placed with some graduate student that's willing to do foster care in their apartment? And it's like, maybe. So, we have a lot of filters, obviously, that we go through, but I would just always take advantage, even now, of saying publicly that we're looking for more and more. And we're doing okay. I don't think we're desperate. And I know some counties, you can imagine in some rural counties, where you could just not have any options. So you're placing kids out of the county all the time, even for foster care. And so we're grateful that we do have resources and we are a hub, but we feel that that's an area in the future that we have to really focus on. Yeah.
And I also assume we have to look at diversity.
Right, exactly. And so gender, what your family of origin is, what your culture is, and your worldview is, all of those things really matter to fit. And the better, it's not a perfect fit. I don't know if it's a perfect fit even with our biological children sometimes and how they fit into our families, but that if you can align those issues, the chances of success are so much better because there's a common understanding. Yeah.
It was interesting is I was watching a movie with my grandson. It was Shazam.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The movie Shazam, who is a superhero, well, he comes from he's a 14-year-old boy that says Shazam, he turns into a superhero. He is in a foster home.
Oh, wow.
And it really promotes the care of a foster home. Mm-hmm. So it's obviously the people in the media industry understand the issues because it was a very positive issue with foster homes, and I'm kind of a superhero type of guy anyway. So
absolutely.
When I get to watch it with my grandson, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, they are superheroes, and we've done that. I know whenever I get a chance, I always say, like when a foster family retires, some of those 30 plus years, and the answer, most of them go, nah, I don't want it to be public. I've just been doing this behind the curtain when no one's looking to do the right thing to help these kids, and they are heroes to me, Commissioner, absolutely.
Yeah, that's as far as I was concerned, the parents in the foster home were just as much of a superhero as
right, exactly.
I mean, of course, we watch it for different reasons than the kids do, because I was saying this is just such a promotional thing, and somebody could latch onto that and use that as a promotion for foster homes.
A tool, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And then finally, just that last graphic on the right is the number of children exiting, and obviously that mirrors a lot of the reasons in some of the color coding of how they came in, but then where do they go? And so reunification with the parent is by far the biggest category, which is what we would like to have happen, but it needs to be a situation that's free from safety concerns. And then adoption, which is actually an area that grew a little bit from the 2017 marks, which is also a great outcome when it is needed and necessary. And again, to this discussion about appreciation for the community good when somebody's willing to open their home to an adoption as well. And the same with permanent custody, which often can happen with a family member who a grandparent would take on permanent custody but not maybe go through the adoption process. The net result is not very different. We consider these all permanency options. And then that final smaller category is actually often represented by a non-custodial parent that maybe does not have rights, but that because of an event that happened regarding concern for safety or behaviors, we relook at that parent and see if they're able to now take on that role. So it's a smaller category, but another type of reunification as well. So that's really what I had to present today.
Okay. Any questions for Phil?
No, I appreciate the minutes.
Yes.
Oh, I meant to mention those, Commissioner and Mr. Chair, just that, yes, we had our advisory committee. We are meeting quarterly. This one was dedicated to public health, and Kelly Hayter came and really talked through all those core components of public health. And even for me, you know, you stand shoulder to shoulder with her, but her trench is different than my trench. And so it was fascinating, even for me, and great discussion. The advisory committee members were asked a lot of questions, made a lot of comments, exactly what we wanted. So thank you.
Kelly does such a great job.
Agreed. Thank you.
Has that format been working okay, Phil?
It really is
They
so
like
far.
it?
I mean, you know,
Okay.
it might take us a couple of years to judge the whole thing, but I know Angie did the last session that was focused on the budget, and so far it seems like everyone's pleased, Commissioner, yes.
They like him.
They do, I
They
think
get
so.
into it.
Yeah, and
Get into it.
right, especially because, you know, during the summer it's really hard to meet, and so we kind of avoid that and then fit the 4 into those times where it's a little easier to meet. So far so good, but I think we should keep our eye on it, make sure there's not, that we're losing anything by that. Yeah.
Well, Jay fills me in on a regular basis.
Yes.
Things are going
A
well.
lot of emailing, I know, Commissioner. Yes. Thank you very much.
Phil.
Thank
Yes,
you.
good to
Thanks,
see you
Phil.
all. Thanks,
Have a
Phil.
great day.
Okay, we'll move on to administrative services.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes for September 10th.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They're approved.
Next would be the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
Move the bills.
Second?
Any discussion?
Got a few.
Go ahead, Vance.
Dirt Merchants, first week, $149,000.
That is a public works project in the Luray Township replacing a culvert out there.
Okay.
I have
I got just a couple more, but I'm into my second week here. And let me see. All right. Mathewitz for $1.5 million.
That is 2 public works projects. CASA 14 was 740,000 of that total, and then County Road 1 was the 768,000. So
All right.
it's kind of a down payment on that.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Well, and then the second week, OMG Midwest for almost $800,000.
That is part of the County Road 17 roundabout construction.
All right, and that was, you know, I bring these up just so the public gets to understand that what kind of money goes out and what, you know, so many of them are road projects and what it costs to build these roads. It's pretty amazing.
Excellent. Do you have some, Colleen?
Just one, air ferries. It's first week. Is that the lice one? For lack of a better term.
It is.
That's what I figured.
Well, I'm not sure. It's a human service item, but it seems larger than that, so I can get some more information.
That's
given
great. Thank you.
The description isn't enough for me to tell you right now.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bills are approved.
All right, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 6 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Just have informational items for you this morning. We do have a promotion of an individual, a case aide in our Human Services Department to a financial assistance specialist, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill the case aide role. Then we filled 3 positions, including the Human Resources Coordinator in our HR department, a clerical specialist in the Human Services area, and a 911 dispatcher in the Sheriff's Department. We also have received a couple of resignations, one of a license center specialist and the other being a probation officer, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill those 2 positions. Be happy to answer any questions that the board might have on the HR agenda.
Any questions for Bob?
I don't have any at this time.
Okay.
All looks good.
All right, item number 7 in your packet then is a resolution as required by Minnesota statute, excuse me, certifying the proposed 2020 property tax levy. Blue Earth County staff began working on the budget in April of this year. Meetings with the department heads were held in June. Work sessions with the Board of Commissioners occurred throughout the summer, resulting in a proposed levy of $38,972,865. This proposed levy is a 6% increase over the levy that was assessed in 2019. Increases in net tax capacity across the county of 4.7% have been realized, which means a significant portion of the increased levy will be absorbed by properties with increased values. I'm recommending the 2020 proposed property tax levy of $38,972,865 be certified to the Blue Earth County Finance Director.
Have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
A lot of work was put into this. I think
Yep.
a lot of good work sessions that we discussed lowering or even raising this levy. And I believe it came out to a good point. We still have some more work to do before we make it final, but I really appreciate not only you, Bob, but all the staff that put their time in to put this together.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved.
Item number 8 in the packet is the 2020 proposed budget. Minnesota Statute 375A.06 requires the county administrator to prepare and submit an annual budget and long-range capital expenditure program to the county board. As I mentioned previously, staff have been working on the proposed budget since April of this year, and it has been reviewed a number of times in work sessions with the county board. As such, I'm recommending approval of a resolution regarding the 2020 proposed budget, which projects expenditures at $114,388,962. I would also point out that the public hearing to discuss the budget will be held on December 3rd, 2019 at 6 p.m. here at the historic courthouse.
Move approval of the proposed budget.
Second.
Any discussion?
Ditto on what Vance just said a few minutes ago, Tom. A lot of time and energy went into this, a lot of good discussion at the work sessions and trying to figure out how to fill this gap, and by using a little reserves, I think we got a good budget put together.
Yep, I do too.
A lot of work in it.
Yep, so. Okay, any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Budget is set.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 9 in your packet then is an application for an exempt permit from the Minnesota High School Cycling League. They are planning an event out at Mount Cato, a fundraising event, and so we're recommending approval of this exempt permit.
I'll move approval.
I'll second it, and
Okay, any discussion?
I give them credit. I can't imagine going up those hills.
they've had groups like that before out there, and it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I think County 1 will be ready. Should be.
Okay, any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Okay, we're to the Commissioners' reports on committees. Who wants to start?
I can start, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
After our last meeting, we had our work session, and Phil and Angie came in and visited us with about several items from Health and Human Services. We got to see the Career Pathways video and work that Laura's been doing. That afternoon, Mark and I and Will were at a joint meeting, ditch drainage meeting with Seward County, and Commissioner Rolfing came over and some staff. A very short meeting to set some stuff, but we were in and out of that relatively fast. Then after that, I was up to the MICA meeting. The last meeting that MICA had, I was unable to attend, so I did a conference call and got to hear Matt at his first meeting. And then Matt was at the meeting, obviously, for the second meeting that was in person. And he did a good job, different management style than Keith, but Keith's ran the organization since I've been on it. Keith did a great job, but I think Matt will do also a good job. Senator Abler came and talked a little bit about the things going on in Human Services, gave us a little update what they had going on, and then we started talking about the things we got coming up for the legislative session. Had the mayors and clerks meeting, which Michael Stahlberger was there and gave a nice presentation on the different things that the services we provide through Michael, and as always, he did a great job. He got some good questions and talked about property taxes and recycling and several other items. Then I had South Central Workforce. Everything's going well there. They got a couple programs they're working on. We had the open house for the new job services, but I wasn't able to make it there the next day. Then that evening I had MVAC. Not a whole lot changed there. Just kind of moving along. We are not going to do the fundraiser this year for the Warm Your Hearts with the soup fundraiser. They're going to try to shift gears and do something a little different. So we've raised quite a bit of money doing that, but they're going to try to find something just a little different.
You know, you have to change up sometimes.
So just a lot of things going on with that. So, and Bob and I met with Dan Geronimo from the DNR, talked about an issue that we have over on Lake Valentine with some drainage. Had a good conversation with him. I was out to the Zieglers, looked at that planning and zoning issue. Thursday morning, we had InterGov, Colleen, myself, and Commissioner Stuenberger were all there. We had a good discussion about the roundabouts, not just one, but the roundabouts. Yep. Colleen brought up the census count, and Pat gave us some good information on that. And Colleen and also brought up some stuff about maybe meeting with the council as a joint meeting. So. And then yesterday I met with Matt, the director from MICA. He came down to our shop here, and Mark and I and Bob all got to visit with him quick. Colleen got to meet him. I don't know if you knew him, Colleen.
I didn't.
You didn't, okay. So I had a nice visit with him, and he was I think he's trying to get to all the board members on the MICA board. He's traveling around to their community, to their area, and just asking questions what he wants from us as board members, and just trying to get the feel of how he can provide a good service for us and our dues. And then yesterday afternoon I had a County Ditch 5 info meeting upstairs. Another big project, over $1 million, $1.3 million. But again, we had probably about 12 or 14 people in the room. Good discussion, some concerns about 3 items that we have to deal with, but that will be coming in front of us in one of our first October meetings to move forward with the repairs. Again, it's just a lot of money. It's a 10,000 acre watershed, so at least it has some area to it. But these are still big numbers for these landowners, and it's an unfortunate expense we have to have. So, with that brings me to today, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Colleen.
Well, as was said, the work session, and that evening we had Rita, the Regional Economic Development Association with GMG. Mark's our person on that board, right? We all were there,
Yeah.
but you're the board member.
Right.
Yeah. The speaker was from Greater MSP, and I was really impressed. I mean, he talked about the need for partnerships and how he wants to partner with GMG. So I think that's really exciting. And it's also really exciting that we have now a new person who's going to be running GMG, Jesse Beyer. So I think that there's some great opportunities. But I think that partnership with Greater MSP is really an important partnership. Then Vance, Will, and I had AMC policy committees. Interesting conversations. One of the panels was on cannabis. Now, AMC is not going to take a position for or against cannabis. What we're going to make sure is that we're at the table when they discuss it, so we can make sure that counties are protected in that. Also, immigration. We need about 4 to 5% immigration in Minnesota in order to maintain a 0.5% of growth in this state. So, talked a lot about the need for additional people coming into the state. In general, I went to general government because that seemed to hit most of the things that I was looking at. Mike also presented at general government. There's going to be a housing subcommittee put together for general government because it's a huge need across this state, and AMC feels it really needs to have a stronger focus on that. Also, a work group on mandates and one on dark stores. So I think there's some real interesting stuff going on right there. We had a conversation about technology. And I think it's really important that our IT person makes sure that the closed captioning is correct. They've got new rules and regulations, and there's a question as to who's compliant and who's not. So it's a big issue. Also, para-aid. 1% of the last payment was made. The legislature thinks they're done, but it really won't be fully funded until 2040. So that's another issue that we need to be thinking about. Also, another conversation on human resources and PTSD. That's going to be a bigger and bigger issue for all levels of government as we move into the future. That's just a snapshot of what happened at general government. Also, the census was brought up. We had a speaker the last day on the census. And so I think there was really good information shared. And on the 17th, Vance and I met with Environmental Services on various issues, the project that was before us today, but also solar and that type of thing. So good conversation. I went to Macaulay Street also. We all did. InterGov, I think that Kip articulated everything very well. The 19th and 20th, I had futures with AMC. And it was a really interesting conversation because it started out with a presentation by Ken Thesey about the farm economy. And so I scanned all that information, and you all will be getting it in your inbox. But it was not only Ken's presentation was good, but the people in the audience had so much to say about it. So it was really good. And it also shows the need at Futures to be looking at rural, urban, and suburban, because sometimes we don't look at the whole continuum. We also were at the Wilder Center, which has Compass, which does data for a multitude of things across the state. And so they taught us how to use that project, and it's really good. And if there are inconsistencies that people see, they want to make sure that they're noticed on it so they can change it if there is a problem. We had Chris Kramer, he's the vice president of research at the University of Minnesota, and he talked about the importance of working together and the type of research they do. They do about $860 million a year in research. So it's certainly not a small place. And then Friday morning, Families First Childcare. Talked about the importance of childcare across counties. There isn't a county in this state that doesn't have a need. And we've got about 1,000 empty spaces in Blue Earth County. I think some of them, there's a couple new places coming on, but it's still a huge hole, and the importance of that. And then the upcoming legislative session. Matt Hilgard talked about that. Yesterday I drew transit, and the 5-year plan has to be done this month, so it's coming to your policy board on Wednesday. We moved it forward, so lots of conversation on, what makes sense with transit. They went from routes to now dial-a-ride, which seems to work better. And it takes a while for it to really catch on. I know that Will took it last board meeting, and that's really positive. But there's, the data is really important to figure that out. MnDOT was there and talked about, are there ways that we can collaborate more with some of the cities? Right now we can't, but we're hoping that that'll change in the future. Then I had a finance, pension, and elections committee with NACO. The interesting thing to me was, and I went and talked to Mike about it, this administration has decided that the Universal Postal Union, which it's international mail, they want to get out of it. And what that means for elections is if you're in the military or if you're overseas, who knows if you'll get your mail or your ballot. And if you do send it back, where's it going to go?
I mean, they want the post office, they want to get out of that?
This administration, the president has decided that he doesn't feel we're being treated fairly, so he wants to get out of the international mail. They're meeting in Geneva the 24th through the 26th, but he wants to be out of it by October 18th. And that impacts our elections dramatically. It's not only, luckily in Blue Earth County, we don't have a November election because the school board went to even years, but we do have a presidential primary. And so who knows what's going to happen? More to come, but doesn't seem to end, does it? The House passed a continuing resolution to November 21st, which will keep the government up and running, because September 30th is, where everything stops. So they've passed a continuing resolution. The Senate's supposed to take it up this week. We assume that it will be passed. And the president has not weighed in as to whether he'll sign it or not. We're hoping and assuming he will. The SALT Working Group, which is, for instance, in Minnesota, you can deduct your state taxes. The legislature decided, or the Congress decided to get rid of that a while ago. There's a working group hoping to make that, extend the SALT a little longer. We don't know what'll happen with that. It's 2 working groups, and we'll see what happens. So that's finance, pensions, and elections. I had Diversity Council yesterday. Boy, am I talking a lot. Blue Earth County Library got a grant to do a story of immigrants. So if you know of any immigrants who might be interested in sharing their story, they are going to be working on that. The other thing about the Diversity Council, which I found interesting, they have been working with the Scott County employees on diversity and inclusion. So I think there's some opportunities there. Also, District 77 and the Diversity Council have a module that's 16 weeks. It's about 5 modules to every teacher or everyone at the school district has to do these modules. So it's a really positive thing. So how do we work? It changes your life, is what they said, because you see it from different perspectives. So enough from me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Colleen. Mark?
Oh, well, I'll try to keep it relatively
A
short.
lot briefer than me.
Well, you had a lot more going on. After our work session, yeah, then we had the LeSueur County, our joint ditch meeting. And then that evening, of course, was the RETA annual meeting. And that was interesting. Yeah, the speaker was interesting. I don't even want to bring it up, but I thought when he brought in California and $109,000 for the middle, like a middle income, and they qualify for public housing.
Yeah.
Because, well, I know everything's expensive out there, but that, I don't know, that really blew my mind away. I mean, anyway, that's why I'm not moving to California at all. But anyway, that was, but yeah, he had some good points, and John Considine had summarized real well that later. September 12th, yeah, mayor and clerks and that evening was in St. Clair, and Michael was here, but Michael gave a little talk on the presidential primary and what we're doing here in Blue Earth County and what the state is doing. And that was actually real interesting. And to tie in with what you were talking about, clean. And then, let's see, Friday at our Caberba meeting, our board meeting at the Ag Center here in Mankato. Nothing really, the kept going with that. Then that Friday morning, I did go to the electric vehicle. Vance was there. I couldn't make Saturday, so which would have been more fun. Did you make Saturday?
No.
I had
Saturday you
grandkids.
try the cars, but
Yeah.
did you make that?
No, all of a sudden I ended up doing childcare with my grandkids.
Well, it was the discussion, though, of course, on the technology and how the advancements with it at the Friday thing at the South Services Center was really interesting. And like with Vance, you have to figure out some kind of funding mechanism there to cars. Well, yeah, they won't get really heavier because the batteries start getting lighter now too. So, yeah, we got to figure out some way to get money for the cars on the road anyway. And then I had a Partners for Affordable Housing meeting. Well, I met with Matt. That's right, met with Micah, and that was interesting. Since he had a past a little bit with the legislature, I went down memory road with him, so that was a little fun. But yeah, he'll be a good asset for Micah, and yeah, I'm sure he doesn't want to hear any more about Keith, because it'd be hard, But he'll do a really good job though. And then we had Paul, our Partners for Affordable, had a meeting yesterday on fundraising, and that ends with that. Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I know. Well, I did meet with some of the people from Hillier on the zoning, but yep.
Thank you, Mark. Vance?
All right. Well, a lot of these things have been going over. Our last board meeting, our work session, the RETA meeting. Very interesting. Next day, myself and Clean were up in Alexandria already for the board meeting, the AMC board meeting that started off the whole policy committee meeting. I'm chair of AMC's transportation committee, and during our policy committee, we not only put together some of the policies, but we on Friday morning we tried to reenact what we did as our board strategic planning on how do we put together a program where everybody can take part of transportation funding. So you have all sides that are looking, all commissioners from all 87 counties are, that are on there, that we can do this. And what they're going to do is they're going to bring this to all our district meetings. Yeah. So at our district meeting coming up this fall, we're going to have a program where we can get involved and say, okay, how do we bring together transportation funding and raising, money for transportation and have it passed through our legislator and our Senate and our House and the governor. And then have the whole 87 counties together. We had last year the resolution that we passed, 11 counties did not pass that.
Yeah.
Interesting is there was one county in our district that did not pass it, but the next week they were in Washington, D.C. asking for transportation funding.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense except that they had two people, one in the House, one in the Senate, that were against any raising of gas tax or any of, and even though it was all washed down, that resolution really only asked for transportation, a raise in transportation funding, didn't say how, but they didn't want to put their name on that because they were afraid of somebody from the House and the Senate. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, then we, like Colleen said, we spoke about immigration, and we spoke about the census coming up. And an interesting part, the individual, and I can't remember the guy's name that was talking about the census, but when the information goes out to all the people, there are like 13 different languages.
But not small, yeah.
2 of the languages that aren't on there are Somalian and Hmong.
Yeah.
The 2 largest immigrations in the state of Minnesota. But those 2, because that's not federally the largest, those 2 aren't on there. So the state of Minnesota is making sure that they get the information out and they put it out to make sure they're, attached to that census. Okay. Anyway, so the meetings went well. September 16th, a Monday, the library's starting out on Maker's Monday, okay, where they come out and show individuals how to make items. I had a conversation with Kelly down there before talking about what I used to do as a promotional advertiser, and she said, well, can you show them how to make buttons? So that's what I did for 2 hours down there.
It's kind of a dying art too.
So making buttons. Yeah, when you pop out a button one at a time, and it's interesting. So we had kids drawing things, and then I made them into buttons for them. It was kind of fun. The next day was when Colleen and I met with Planning and Zoning and talked about different items, including what we talked about today and the solar and different things, just to get our head wrapped around what was going on. September 18th, I sat in a booth over at IlluminaCraft for the Towards Zero Death. And I ran a distracted driving simulator, which is always fun when somebody tries to drive the simulator and then dial their cell phone at the same time they're driving, and you have some younger people that think that they can do it and they can't.
Yeah.
And then I had a Rural Action Caucus call in that same day, and we're talking about the symposium that's coming up next month. September 19th, you talked about the intergovernmental meeting. That was a very interesting meeting. That evening, I went to St. Paul Union Depot for the Jefferson Line's 100th anniversary. Speakers there, I got to speak with Governor Walz, Charlie Zelli. Folks are always interesting to talk to. But Mayor Frey from Minneapolis and Mayor Carter from St. Paul were also speakers. And it was a very nice event for Jefferson Lines, which for 100 years. It's to see what they used to do, and when the state didn't have snowplows, they actually got snowplows so they could plow their routes out. you know, they plowed some of the state roads just so the lines could go through. So it was kind of interesting to hear some of the background. And I went through Friday. Did the electric vehicle. That was very interesting. You're right. Trying to figure out how you can get transportation funding from electric vehicles and how and the whole thing. Of course, there's some people that think we're already taking too much money with the $75, but we gotta take care of our roads and bridges, and that's just so change is going to come. Sometimes it's very hard. Change is always hard. And then this morning I had the airport commission. Airport commission was interesting because in the free press this morning we talked about a tower. It's interesting, the free press report mentioned $5 million, where actually cost is probably closer to $9 million if you put a tower out there. But a lot of that's a 90-10 split, but even $9 million, 90-10, that's $900,000 that would have to come up with different entities, and I don't know if the county's going to be asked to assist with that or not. The airport is just an amazing facility that we have, and it handling the whole regional center. They have a whole list of the different businesses and different people that are flying in using that airport. Trouble is, there's some businesses that because it's so busy, they're not flying into Mankato, and that's something we have to get around. That's where a tower would come in. So the safety aspects, because they're afraid with what's going on. But this morning, the Minnesota State University Mankato airport instructor that's on the board was talking, and they have 460 students.
Isn't that great?
Over 400.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, considering what 5 years ago they're almost thinking of dumping the whole thing,
Exactly.
which would have killed our air training out at the airport. But that's the end of my report.
Okay. Well, a lot of the stuff has been talked about, the work session, the ditch meeting, AMC, that's pretty well covered, other than I was at the Public Safety Policy Committee meeting. We also talked about the cannabis thing there, the challenges it is for counties. On the 16th, I was out in South Bend Township, spent quite a bit of time out there visiting with some folks about flooding issues out there, and then of course the residents that were here this morning, I met with them. On the 17th, I was at the South Bend board meeting, again visiting with the board there about the flooding issues and the planning and zoning issues. Yesterday I was at the Rural Minnesota Energy Board and PACE meetings in Slayton, and had good meetings there, nothing out of the ordinary there. And then this morning I was at Lake Crystal Welcome Memorial to welcome the students who drove their tractors to school in honor of homecoming.
That's pretty cool. That's so cool.
I just love that.
That's my report. So, anything else?
Best part is he got his picture of his grandson
He showed
driving
me.
it in. So that is very, very cool.
Yeah, we actually cheated. We actually trailered his tractor to within 5 miles of the school. So, okay, is there anything else for the board to consider?
That's all we have today, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll recess to the Rapidan Dam for lunch then. So.
Sounds great.
So moved.
Yep, thank you, everyone. Oh, I better say, motion, you got the motion, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're recessed. Thank you.